Hello, everyone. I'm just getting things set up here. Let me invite Clint as a speaker. All right. And let me share my screen. And now I'll hop over to YouTube, make sure everything looks okay there. Yep, see it running. See, we have ads. Let me say hello in chat. All right. So, Clint, are you with me or are you away from your keyboard? Oh, we have Lee here too. Lee, why don't you join us? You can fill in for Kyle and help add some discussion to our topic today of indexing. I think you know a thing or two about indexing. So just waiting for Clint. We got Lee here. How you doing, Lee?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Doing pretty good. I see Clint fell off. He might be having technical difficulties.
Yeah, this is fun. You just heads up to today, and he says, "Get on the show." I'm like, "All right."
Yeah. We're talking about indexing. Clint, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
My camera wasn't working. It was working earlier, and then it stopped. So, weird.
Oh, yeah. I saw you hop in and out a few times there. All right, so I guess let's dive right in to today's topic. We're going to be talking about indexing, but we'll do a little bit of boilerplate. Just wanted to let people know that our contest with the giveaways is over. So we had 9 winners from the IMG community. 3 got Image Duplicator Pro lifetime licenses from Patrick Tuttle and Ranking Factory. So many thanks to Patrick for donating that prize. He's offered to do it again in a future contest. So if you wanted that, it's going to come back. Madge gave us 3 awesome press releases. The gold level ones for 3 winners at Magic PR. And you know about Magic PR, right, Clint? That's a big thing at SIA.
Yeah, actually, SIA tested it and they beat Press Advantage. They tried to test Quantum. Quantum never posted a press release for whatever reason. So, and then there was one other one that they tested against, and Magic PR beat him. I like them so much, I actually partnered with him. So I'm the guy. He's got the bronze, silver, and gold now, and then there's another package in there, the platinum, and I'm doing all the syndication for that platinum stuff.
Yeah, so thank you, Madge, for contributing those prizes to our drive. We'll definitely have you back again. And then Kyle and Andrew offered a month of the agency level of the Page Optimizer Pro, and that was pretty cool. So there's pretty big value in this giveaway, and we're going to do more. We're doing them monthly. And if you haven't been in IMG in the past few days, the community has literally blown up with this 5-day site challenge to get started in affiliate SEO. Doug Cunnington from the Niche Site Project is doing this free course on IMG. We just had our second day today, but if you want to get in on it, it's not too late. You just got to watch the replays to get caught up. And if you do the homework for this 5-day challenge, you get entered to win his course for free. So there's a prize if you do the free part. So If you want to give that a try, go ahead and go to internetmarketing.gold and go to the courses section in the step 2. And you can do all of this for free. So the IMG account, the 5-day challenge course, it's all free. So check that out. If you're in a later time zone, New York, London, Berlin, or Sydney, you can catch the second video today still. So you can catch those live and ask questions. So if you're in those time zones, check those out. And for people who are wondering what's new with Cora, Cora 6 is in active development, and the #1 requested feature is being built. So that is automation, being able to queue up a lot of different keywords and reports with different settings and having them run.
Hey, so, we got to ask the question everybody wants to know, Ted. When will we have Cora 6, you think?
Oh, we're probably 2-3 weeks out.
So why say anything, you big tease? You know what they say.
Well, the value in saying it early is that people come to me and say, Ted, have you thought about X? And, those considerations that I often don't think of on my own need to come to the table at the right time so that I can get them built and released all together. And so a lot of that feedback, a lot of those ideas come from my users and the audience who need to know I'm in the development phase. Somebody asked on Cora Lite, do we have to use proxies? No, I generally don't. You typically only need to use proxies if you burn your connection with other software. So if you run Link Assistance, Rank Tracker, and burn your IP.
I never have that issue either.
Yeah.
The only time I have issues is if I try to run the same keyword over and over again.
Yeah, like maybe once a year I get blocked for 2 days and then I put one shared proxy into it. And so if you have shared proxies, just set one aside for Cora in case you need it and use the rest for your other SEO tools and you should be golden. Most people don't even need that one. SEO this week, what can people expect?
SEO this week. So we talk about co-citation, co-occurrence. That was the big topic in the news. And I did a kind of a mini training piece on that and how I think of co-citation and co-occurrence, disagreeing with the author of the news article that I highlighted that brought the topic to bear. And then I also have the first installment of Meet the Expert in there. There's a interview with Paul Ankerschmidt. I'm totally violating his name, but
I have to. Sorry to interrupt. I have to go help my kids. They're screaming about something, so I'll be back in 1 minute.
Okay.
All right. Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. He's going to go kill his children. Anyway, so we talk about Mentorprise. I've highlighted that program on my show quite a bit, and then I've talked about it and then the uses of it, etc. Whenever I mention it, inevitably get the, SEO Content Machine does that. Well, it does now. Some of the things that SEO Content Machine has added or stuff that's in Mentorprise. Competition makes things better. And what's going with Mentorprise now is they've actually, if you've seen Ted's SEO Editor Pro where you can go through and scrape the headings, they've added a feature that essentially does that and it goes right into your content. They've added localization so you can make your spun content localized. So if you search for XYZ and you just add in city to it, and it'll it'll add a city, so make all your content localized. They've added an option where you can scrape images directly out of the SERPs, the common versus finding your own, and same with videos. And coming in June, July-ish, I think more probably towards more July, they are going to have a system where you give them a domain. You're essentially paying for the hosting. You connect it to Menterprise. You can if you want to, or you don't. But and then it works like a Money Robot, SEO Autopilot, or any other link building tool that you've seen with the diagrams and the tiers. So let's say you have 30 domains sitting out, and you don't know what to do with them. You give them put those 30 domains in this system. It makes the pages on there, et cetera. It does all the interlinking. And let's say I'm linking to one of Lee's projects, and Lee quits, or one of my domains gets fried, or for any other reason, or that we just screwed up the URLs. You can fix the URLs in the system. It'll fix the URLs on the website you're fixing them to, and then it'll go through and all those other 29 domains that are linking to that in your tier process. It'll fix all of those too. Or you can change one URL or change the linking structure, and it'll reassign everything and do it all for you right on the fly. So I'm pretty excited about that one. Really cool feature.
That is a pretty cool thing. Let me ask you this. If you've got, I know you're a big fan of Menterprise, if some of the other software tools out there that you mentioned start to improve their stuff, will you go back and test them again?
SEO Content Machine, I still use that. I still use that like a lot. And I asked for a couple of features from the old version that they brought into the new one. And they're very adaptive to that. And I think there's probably a use case where you can say use Menterprise versus SEO Content Machine versus use SEO Content Machine versus Menterprise. There's another one. It's Content Machine, I think is the name of it.
Yeah, I remember that with the K.
Yeah. And that one's not too bad either. But it's really, what tool are you plugging it into? SEO Content Machine pops out stuff in GSA format for me. So by default, that one is kind of like I'm going to go for that one for GSA. And then SEO Autopilot, I use Menterprise. And then if I'm doing a content brief and I want to, and I'm hiring or paying someone for writing, and I don't want to pay for all their research time and then get junk back like an iWriter quality thing. On that note, if you want to get iWriter, just get Menterprise because the quality is about the same, even spun. But I can do a content brief, a full content brief, attach that to a Quora report, put that content brief in my Quora report, do a little video for my writer. Here's your outline. Here's all the topic. Here's the entities I want. Here's the LSIs. And here's all your headings. Go do your thing. I get a better piece of content back, and it comes back a whole lot faster. So,
pretty awesome, man.
Sorry about that, everyone. Online school and technical issues with the kids getting into their classes.
He's all over the internet.
Yeah, typical COVID headache scenario. Got it resolved though. So, what did I miss?
Lee was talking about his new porn sites.
Oh, how's that going, Lee?
Well, sexyted.com is taking off. I'm just saying.
All right. So with that, we will start today's topic. So you can leave your microphones on, but we'll turn our cameras off for the folks out on YouTube. And so we're talking about known methods of indexing, and some of these will work and some of these won't, and we don't necessarily know which ones work or which ones work best. But what I've been doing in the past week is kind of looking at different conversations and solutions that are available for indexing, and trying to figure out the fundamentals of how all these methods and approaches work. And I'm just trying to make this master list of what the world thinks works for indexing. And so I'm just trying to get the authoritative list, and then later I can go back and test and try to build better indexing technology based on what we find. So that's my goal. And I figured I'd share it with everybody, A, because maybe some people out there who know things I'm missing will share them back with me, and B, who doesn't want to know about this stuff in SEO? This is a core fundamental of SEO. How do I get my pages indexed? and we want to take a look at that. So what do you guys think about the topic?
I think it's timely.
Yeah, I think it's critical because all of the testers that we have out there and the content publishers out there are constantly, I mean, especially since January 1st with all the updates and rollbacks and everything else, and then into here, been saying, how do I get my pages indexed? And it's so it's very, very important and timely. I agree with Clint.
So with that, we'll dive right in. So obviously, the one that Google recommends the most is simply submitting a sitemap in Google Search Console. The pros, it's a bulk submit. It gives an indication of success rate, so it'll tell you how many of your sitemap URLs are indexed. And this gives you a diagnostic methodology because you can create multiple sitemaps based on the types of pages you have. Your brand pages, your support pages, your category pages, your product pages, your blog posts. And then you can see if any category of page has specific indexing problems. The downside to it is it's very slow, and the measurements coming out of Google Search Console are very unreliable. So oftentimes it's very hard to get the number of index pages to agree. So Google Search Console will often tell you how many pages are indexed and then how many pages in the sitemap are indexed. And if you have a 20-page website, one of those two numbers might say, you have 15 pages indexed overall, but the sitemap one with the exact same URLs will say you have 2 pages indexed. And it's like, what is up with that? And Google never explains those differences. And so with that, I think, the information value of this method is kind of broken. And it's kind of slow. I typically find that sitemaps don't get crawled until like a month later. What do you guys think?
My stance on sitemap and even Search Console, and I think that there's an index that Search Console is running off of, and then there's the live SERPs that everyone sees. Because I've seen too many examples of where it says in Search Console, oh, it's indexed. These pages are all indexed, and then you go actually look using various search parameters inside of the live index, and it's not there. So I have a really big issue with even trusting anything inside a Search Console anymore, because there's, that's one simple piece that should be able to get accurate, I would think, and that's not even accurate. So how much of those numbers are even worthwhile if you can't trust that one simple piece? How can you trust any of it?
Yeah, for me, I hate it because every time I've tried to do things just with submitting a sitemap, you're creating a site with a bunch of test pages, it takes forever. And I just had one that I did a couple of weeks ago, 4 brand new sites, 10 pages per site, just submitted the sitemaps because I was lazy and didn't want to do the Google Search Console. And a week later, one had 2 pages, one had 4 out of the 10, and the other 2 had 0 out of the 10. And I'm like, no, I've got to go in and do it, manually. But I don't like the sitemap method at all because it just doesn't seem to work and it's too slow.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'll do it, especially for clients and big sites and everything. But it's kind of like the net I cast in the background. It's not my primary attempt at being indexed. So the next methodology is to request indexing in Google Search Console for a single URL. And so this is what most SEO testers will use, or people who make, simple changes to a page will use this method to index the changes for that page they just made. It's nearly instant. Like, you get a lot of reports from the field about people saying within minutes they see it in search. And so that gives it a real-time indication of success or failure. That typically doesn't work. It tends to break during Google updates. When Google's deploying big changes, it feels like they pause this part. And that's when you hear stories during big updates that indexing is broken. The cons of this method is that once you hit about 50 in a day, you get hard CAPTCHA. So you end up having to identify the fire hydrants or click all the crosswalk squares, those types of things. And it's not bulk. You have to do it one URL at a time. But, you know, the benefit of it is that for a small amount of pages, you get that instant satisfaction. What do you guys think about this method?
That one, I think those numbers are a little bit wrong. I get the hard CAPTCHA right around the 10 URL mark. And it's IP based because I do it with multiple different search consoles. And it's IP based, so it'll fire off if I jump from one to another, whatever. Right after I get the 10, it'll start giving that CAPTCHA. And then it's actually a limit of 50 per day. You can't add any more than 50 per day.
Interesting. That might be a change, because I used to get the CAPTCHA at 50, but I could do a lot more.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're treating us different. We'll have to compare notes after the show.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say for me, I always run into the CAPTCHA at number 10, but I was just doing one a couple of days ago, and once I hit 30, I had the CAPTCHA on every single submission after that. And I had to get 40 of them in. So, 10 times I had to solve the universe.
Interesting. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm also interested, the nearly instant indexing, I don't see that very often. A lot of times with the GSC, occasionally you will see it within, a few minutes and so forth. But more often than not, it's a couple of days. Yeah. So I'll be interested to hear you guys and see if you're getting the nearly instant, then you're different than I am.
It used to be nearly instant. Like that's like part of my workflow for SEO this week. I do a new piece of content on Digital Ear and then publish it and go submit it over there. And within like 5-10 minutes, it's in the index. Now it's like a day or two.
Interesting. So yeah, my information might be dated. If Google made changes recently, this could all be different. So, I want to go back and retest all this now. So, used to be is probably the way of looking at this data then. So, another method of getting indexed is the organic way. Get backlinks on other pages, either internal or external. And Google will organically discover your new pages through those backlinks. This is easy to do if you're using internal links. You just naturally link to the new pages you create. It's a lot of labor to do it. It's not really bulk unless your CMS is your content management system is built in a way to kind of help you automate it. You kind of get that with WordPress. If you make a post, it automatically appears in different widgets and zones of your website. But waiting for Google to recrawl your website, that could take days in a good scenario and weeks, if not months, in a bad scenario. What do you think about this approach?
I've seen it work and I've seen it not. So the way it works, Terry Samuels from SEO Spring Training kind of highlighted this, is like in local, you have a page. I'll just use Phoenix SEO, for example, because I talk about that a lot. Phoenix SEO. And then what he does is he put his top citations on that page, and then that indexes his citations. And I've tried it with S3 using an HTML doc, and it didn't work as well. But it used to work pretty good if you use Google Docs or Google Sheets. So it's kind of a hit and miss game. It's more, honestly, I would do it just because it's worth it if it catches it. And then if not, at least you got a decent backlink coming to some of that stuff that you can do as a buffer for tier 1, for example.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing. We have a couple of people that have tested sort of index pages, and Ted, you know about that one because you use it in your testing software. Where you just have an index page on your site or on another site which has all the links to the new, say, test pages you've built or the content pages that you've built. And what we found is the difference that it works well if Google is crawling at its normal rate. We found that there's a difference sometimes in their time to crawl it, and then their time to index it after they crawl it can be different as well. So if Google's being sluggish, this method is as sluggish as any other, but you can, it has the advantage of being able to do somewhat bulk if you create it as an index page on your site or, on another site.
Yep. And that brings us to the method you just mentioned, which is the HTML index. So you request indexing in Google Search Console for an HTML index for Google to then crawl. One thing we've noticed is that Google can deactivate or limit or qualify this crawling behavior for the purposes of indexing. And when I submit an index to Google to crawl, it will only crawl the URLs that are for that verified property. So if I put a bunch of URLs to off-page things, it'll crawl the verified ones from the Google Search Console indexing request. And then Google will later recrawl it and find those off-page links, but the timely crawl is only for the verified property. So this is cool in that you can do a bulk submit. Like you could have Google crawl, a large number of links. And I believe the largest amount I got Google to crawl with this method was about 700 links. And because of that, it makes it low effort. So one request indexing in Google Search Console, getting 700 pages crawled, that's pretty low effort. That's a 700 to 1, efficiency. The cons are you have to wait for the crawl. So you don't get that near real-time thing that we used to see with requesting indexing on a URL by URL basis. You have to wait a few days. And it only crawls one layer deep. So, the Google Search Console is doing a limited scope of crawling. And, we've seen it take, typically upwards of a week for test scenarios. How long does it typically take you, Lee?
Well, this came from some testing with Inside, a couple of people that will generate lots of pages just for the purposes of testing indexing. And the first time they did it, it was 1,000 pages that were all crawled within 8 minutes and indexed within 14 hours. Subsequent tests, when updates and things were going on, they would get crawled over 2 to 3 days and indexed over days and weeks. So that's the thing. And it didn't seem to matter whether the index page was for pages on the site where the index was, or you could index pages on another site as well. It worked equally well in those test scenarios. So maybe new behavior for Google, but it can happen really, really fast if Google's crawling fast.
That's really good to know, because you could definitely then utilize the Google indexing API if they crawl unverified URLs, because then you just use your indexing API to get an HTML index of any URLs to get them indexed, and that would be fantastic. I would love that to work that way going forward.
Well, Google keeps moving things around, so you never know. That may be temporary. It may be the new order of things. It may change in 6 months. You know how it is with Google. So, but it's definitely worth testing if you're trying to get stuff indexed.
So,
I also test if you're stuck and it's only doing the verified domain, just use a tool like Pretty Links and 301 or use the cloaking feature, and it kind of sticks that way. So you could submit and use Pretty Links to 301 to that other link, and it's still going to force that crawl because technically it is on that verified domain until it hits the 301. So I would try that out.
Oh, that's clever.
Nice idea. Nice
Gray
idea.
hat indexing. And Clint, you've been doing a lot of testing with the test tool, and I know that uses this method. So what do you think of the submitting HTML indexes to Google Search Console?
I do that because you have it in there by default, and you know that I've changed a lot of the code in there to adjust for mobile in case it was mobile first that was screwing us over. But I also do like Omega Indexer because I know they're not building backlinks to get those pages targeted. So it's a little hard to say which one is working versus not because I've not tested them out. What I'm working on now is one kind of similar to what you're doing, just so I can help out with your indexing ideas, is testing these various methods across the 10 different sites and see which one will provide us the best results. And then that gives you some more data to look at. So,
oh, that'll be amazing.
Yeah, but I will say that there's some tests that I've done where I submitted just the HTML, and then I had to go back and do Omega because it was just taking forever and it was painful. But you know me, I'm kind of impatient. I didn't wait out to see how long it would take for them to read it. So,
well, yeah, if it's taken too long, I'd call that method a fail anyway.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the Google Indexing API. Have you guys worked with this at all?
I thought originally it was only for the job thing, so I never looked back at it again. Have they updated it so you can add regular websites?
It looks like it's for regular websites, so I get okay responses. I know they have one for the job postings specifically, but it looks like they have one that's just for general indexing. But they require that you have Google Search Console verification. And I've already developed this and worked with this, so I have it working. It looks good for internal verified websites. And so that's why I'm hoping that, Google's secondary crawl is picking up all of the external links, because then I could get the rapid indexing and hopefully expedited crawl for the external links using this approach. So the downsides to this is that you have to use Google's APIs, and if you haven't used Google's APIs, they're among the shittiest in the industry. They are hard to work with. You can't embed them in software because they look for, licensing files and specific paths on the file system, and they do crap like that. And it's just horrible to work with. So they anticipate that the only way you'd ever use their API is in a SaaS product website. And I don't know why they do that. I think it's unwieldy, and that makes it difficult to build solutions where people can use their own APIs. And so, I have to create software that only goes through my API. And, I don't think it's an elegant technology the way they have it built. I think it's built so you don't use it. And I don't know.
You think they did it that way so that if you have to use it by SaaS, now they can monitor who's using, what SaaS to submit what links. And if I know that these are the services that exist, now I can look for link building patterns as part of my learning process. In their case, it's just being nosy as part of my learning process towards identifying link sources to try to clean that aspect up and stop guys like me who just don't care and will build links for everything.
Well, I think what they might have envisioned is they have that product for WordPress. What the hell is that thing that they have? Everybody's using it now. Well, they have this thing, and it integrates the indexing API, or it has the ability to do it, where when you update a page, it can ping the indexing to get that change submitted quickly. And so I think they envision a world where people will get a CMS and for a website, and when they want to submit something new or something updated for that website, that there's a way to ping that.
You're talking about the Sidekick by Google?
Yeah, that's the one. And so, they probably have it built for that type of purpose. They probably don't want to use the API for general bulk mass submitting of the internet in general, because I think you're right. They want to spy on the usage.
Yep. And you said Sidekick has API, the indexing API in it?
Or they have an add-on for it. I saw that somewhere. I don't have links to it. I saw it in passing. But I'm not a big WordPress person, so I'm not using Sitekit.
I'll have to check that out, because if that's true, then that's the easy way to test the idea of the 301s. That should be really simple to test out. And even if you're not a WordPress guy, you just make a WordPress site, put pretty links on it, and build some HTML sitemaps and go to town with it. You have your own indexing source, connect right to Google Indexing API. So that would be pretty handy.
Yeah, you still have to work the configuration magic that is, getting approved and getting your codes and everything for the indexing API. And even that Google makes unnecessarily difficult. But, you should be able to do it. It's just a matter of getting all the right check boxes checked in the right, areas. So the next methodology is the Google Indexing API for an HTML index, which I mentioned. The pros of it is that it says that it'll work for verified URLs. If you attempt to index an unverified URL, the API gives you an error message. But hopefully, since we're going to do a verified HTML index of external pages, hopefully that gets the expedited crawl and the bulk submit. So that's the dream. Again, we haven't tested this methodology, but that's the one I'm really hopeful for. And then Google has these vestigial services still out there. Like, did you guys know that there's a way to submit a sitemap without going through Google Search Console?
No, I didn't know that.
You can use this URL structure to ping sitemaps that aren't in Google Search Console. I don't know how well it works, but it's still there. It's still responsive. So, it's easy. It's fast. The cons are we don't know if it works or how well it works. I have no idea the time frame. We haven't tested this. So if you want to test this, people of the world, feel free. I'd love to know how it turns out. And then Google has this PubSubHubbub thing, and this has been out for quite a while. If you're broadcasting your sitemap in the Atom RSS spec, then you can distribute it to Google and, in theory, other search engines as well, all through this app that they built. Have you guys used this thing before?
I have not. Does FeedBurner? WordPress is simple RSS.
Yeah.
FeedBurner switch to Atom?
Well, FeedBurner is different. So this is something else that Google has cooking out there.
I know, but does FeedBurner publish an Atom RSS feed? That's what I'm asking.
FeedBurner will take it as an input, but it will also use just simple RSS, whereas this tool from Google must have the Atom spec. Otherwise, it'll give you error messages. So this one is more strict.
You have WordPress that does simple RSS. Can you put it into FeedBurner? And then FeedBurner by default creates another RSS feed based off of what it's getting from your RSS feed. So is that feed from FeedBurner, is that Atom, so that you can put it into this?
Maybe. I have not tried it. That's a clever idea. If it works, it could do the feed translation for you, if that works.
Plus, you have two Google properties getting your content.
Yeah, that's a clever idea. Again,
old school techniques used to use just FeedBurner. If you burn the FeedBurner feed, it would get your stuff indexed really fast. Does anybody know if that still works?
Yeah, I remember that. It was FeedBurner into Yahoo Pipes, and that was killing it.
Exactly.
Hang on a second. I need to take some notes. That's why we're sharing this information. That's why sharing information is a good thing. So I knew about FeedBurner. I have to go check if Yahoo Pipes is still a thing.
It's not.
Clint, in our chat, somebody says that WordPress gives you the Atom feed if you add /Atom/ after the feed.
Yeah, thanks, Mohammed. We can try that. Yeah, Yahoo Pipes is dead. They killed that. It wasn't very mainstream. Mostly SEOs were using it, and content people, like enterprise content people, and Yahoo, they were failing anyway, so they shut down Pipes, which sucks. And there's no alternative for it, which that really blows. I would have, if that was for sale, that would have been an awesome product to keep going.
That's too bad. So, another method is putting links on pages that Google visits often. So if Googlebot is visiting a particular page multiple times a day, then these types of indexing services will put a link to what you want indexed until Googlebot comes back for a visit, and then they'll rotate it out. And so you get these temporary backlinks that get seen by Google using this methodology. Have you guys ever used a service like this or a method like this?
There was a software, G-Indexer, I believe the name of it was, and they were using that for quite some time. And it was actually working really well. But it turns out, I guess they were using Chinese websites, and then Google kind of caught on to what they were doing, and G-Indexer lost every bit of its value. So I would think you would have to kind of make your own list here and then test site to site and see which one works best for you. I haven't seen any new services yet that have used this model anymore. So.
Yeah, I saw that G-Indexer was discontinued. I actually tried to get a copy for testing, and you can't get it anymore.
Yeah, they discontinued it after collecting payments for it from everybody for a year, claiming that it was still working. So keep that in mind, the quality of those people that was behind that tool. So
yeah, it was largely promoted in Black Hat channels. So, but Black Hat channels aren't normally that bad. Normally, they're pretty strict about scams. But you gotta worry.
Buyer beware with anything.
Yeah, exactly. So redirect hijacking. So this is an interesting one. I saw this through freeindexer.com, and they show you every URL that they're using to index your content, and that's remarkably transparent. And so you can see all the URLs that they're going to, and the vast majority are redirect systems. And I suspect that when you go through these redirect systems, you appear in public logging and other things. You appear in trending now content widgets and stuff like that. And so by hijacking these redirects, you're effectively building backlinks. And way in the middle, like this service goes through like 700 or 800 of these things. And right in the middle, there's a bunch of Google redirects that you can get into. And those pique my curiosity. I suspect that this is probably a really decent approach because it's so easy to bulk submit. For tier 2 links, I probably wouldn't do it to a money site. But if you're doing backlink indexing, this type of thing might be effective. I don't know. We have to test it, but it's plausible. The downside to it is that to get through, all 700 things on the free indexer, you're looking at, 15, 20 minutes per URL. You'd have to rebuild scripts using those URLs and automate it so you could walk away and do mass building. So there's some coding needed to make this method work. And I imagine it's still, weeks or more to get really good canvassed indexing, because it's depending upon Google finding those backlinks and then discovering your content. Have you guys used Free Indexer or anything like this?
I have not, but it sounds like they're doing that redirect. So that's basically what it is, right? So domain.com and then the parameter that goes to URL, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if it's doing that, Kyle tested that in SIA. That test is still in SIA, and it didn't do crap for him. I used to use it as part of some tools. There was what Magic Submitter had it in there, and there was a couple independent tools that created those. But I've seen them work again. But it wasn't for indexing. I actually used them for ranking. And what I did is I created a bunch of those, and then I used a tool like Money Robot and send junk traffic to them. And then and the ones that I chose were more high value ones. They're not just generic people's websites. So I chose some high value ones, and I sent traffic to that whole bunch, and it boosted up my rankings without building any other backlinks to it. So, you kind of have to look at those and see, do they create redirects, whereas the Google ones actually create a page. And then there's some other ones that create pages or do that redirect page. This link is sending you to another site kind of thing. You have to look at those, kind of filter those out. I was looking at that Free Indexer because I've never even heard of that website before. It's pretty interesting. So what I would say is sign up for an account over there or upgrade. Get the entire list that they're doing, and then drop all of those in a spreadsheet, and then do a find and replace. And you've essentially done the same thing. And you can mass kind of do that on your own if you have the right scripts with your spreadsheets in there. So,
yeah. The other thing I noticed is about like half of their redirects are coming out of Russia. So if you don't want Google to think you're popular in Russia, you may want to reconsider some of those entries.
Yeah, I don't know that I would use this as an indexing thing because of the time frame, and certainly because most of the indexing we're doing is for testing, but it does look like an interesting possibility for building some backlinks to those tier 2s, and that might be worth testing.
Yeah, the problem with these for backlinks is they don't matter until you have to actually tell Google to do it, because technically you're not creating a page on those websites, you're just setting that redirect. So you got to run through these and then go through an indexer and get them crawled in order for that to be effective.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the times where it organically works is when those redirects feed into web server logs that are accessible to Google, or trending widgets and reports on the website.
Yeah.
So if they don't have these, then they're like no value, and you have to get those redirect URLs actually indexed.
Yeah. If you have an RSS creator software, you just create this whole list and then drop it into an RSS feed and send it to FeedBurner. So that'd probably be the best way to notify them.
Yeah, and then you'd potentially have a lot of backlinks. So pinging feeds, we mentioned FeedBurner. There's also Pingomatic. So yeah, you create your feed of your content, your links, your redirects, those types of things. Probably best for tier 2. You might not want to syndicate for a lot of garbage links to your money site. That would be a big mess to clean up if Google didn't like it. So I'd try to limit it to tier 2 if you can. You have to do feed creation, which is kind of annoying in many cases. And again, it's a slow process. So what do you guys think? FeedBurner, Pingomatic?
It's probably the two normal ones by default. And then you can search. If you're using WordPress, just search for the ping list for WordPress. And you get like 100, 150 that you let the CMS do the work for you, drop it in there and be done with it.
Agreed.
Nice. So we got 2 more slides here. So I think this will all fit in one episode. I know Kyle wanted it to be a 2-parter, but let's just knock it out.
He didn't show up, so who cares?
Yeah, he's traveling. If you're wondering where Kyle is, he couldn't be here because he's on the road. So domain and Whoisstat websites. So the pros, these are kind of easy to submit to. The cons, they tend to be domain level. They're not URL based. Again, you're waiting for Google to recrawl, rediscover those backlinks that get generated. So have you guys used these at all?
It falls in line with the redirect ones. They're kind of created the same way.
Yeah.
And way back, that used to be one of the quick ranking techniques, is to go get those, because there were thousands of them, and you could go get a bunch of links in a hurry.
Yeah, they're good for getting a website discovered, but they're not necessarily good for getting a page discovered or getting an update to a page discovered. So they're pretty limited use, I think. And then that brings us to like theories. And so these are really untested. I don't know that people are necessarily using these, but if some of these other things work, then some of these things might work too. So Google CTR, the ping attributes, those are redirect URLs. And like in that free indexer thing, the thing I saw in the middle looked like they were capitalizing on those redirect URLs that Google is using. So those might actually feed into a process. So that's worthy of testing. Social backlinks. So when you mention things and, trending Facebook groups, do those get discovered? Do those get crawled faster? Could you create a post in one of the big, groups out there that's just for the purpose of indexing, use it as a test and see if it does anything. Does it get those pages indexed faster? So maybe we could talk to Stephen King and do an experiment to see if his group could be used as a theoretical indexer. Maybe he's open for experimenting.
Well, that won't work because Google's not crawling and indexing groups. It would have to be on a page. You could try pages, Twitter moments. Those work.
Well, the thing is Google is seeing the activity because of the safe browsing API and other things. So, Lee, do you think there's any possibility that Google could see?
It's definitely possible, and now that we're bringing that back, I think I might have to go and actually test that to see if I can get results just by running, traffic to the URLs. I know traffic's the factor. I'd have to control, the level of traffic to pages, but just to see if it could do it. And I've got some new websites coming online, so it'd be a great place to do it, because it'd be brand new websites, no sitemaps, and see if they come and index it.
But then wouldn't that be the traffic? That wouldn't be the social bookmark. It's the traffic from the referrer, which would be Facebook, versus social.
Not necessarily. Sometimes when you load it, because if you use Chrome, when you crawl a URL, goes to the Safe Browsing API, and that triggers some activity within Google. And the question is whether it will trigger them to crawl a new page. I know it triggers them to evaluate pages potentially differently, but whether it'll trigger it to crawl a brand new page or not.
And you're right, Clint, that it makes CTR part of the process. But the thing is that Safe Browsing API is giving data to Google that this was a link that was on a Facebook page.
What was a link that was on Facebook page versus a Facebook group?
Yeah.
So as far as Google's concerned, this is a link and there's traffic coming from Facebook, so maybe it's valuable versus I used in the case of where it says social backlinks, that's different than that's social traffic. So social traffic queues new URLs and engages and creates indexing versus a social backlink, i.e. putting it on a Facebook page that is indexed and crawlable. There's no traffic coming, and just because that backlink is on that social page, is that created indexing? I think you got two different questions there.
Yeah, I think you're right. It can be broken up. And then AMP, does Google crawl AMP pages faster? Does it index AMP pages faster? Could you put an HTML index as an AMP page and get it processed more quickly? Are there ways of teasing out indexing by exploiting AMP? Could you create an AMP indexing service? I don't know the answer to those questions. Have you guys worked with AMP in that regard?
We got it on one site. I don't use AMP a lot, but we have it on one site. And that's, to me, that one's probably the most sound theory of the entire list here, is because there's mobile first indexing, right? And we know, so that right there, and based off of what we've seen with the testing tool and having to apply all the mobile changes to the code to make sure that Google doesn't give any more errors, and then the indexing popped in really good. I think that one has good bones to start with. I would look at that really hard.
And then schema. So there's all these schema entities where you can specify URLs. I have to wonder if those get any sort of special processing in Google's infrastructure. So you work with schema in a very verbose way. Do you think there's any, room or possibility for that to work?
I've seen it correlate. I haven't tested to see if it's causing it, but I've had a website. I talked about it yesterday. I think I talked about it yesterday on a show I did with one of the members here, and he had me on his show. But basically, we were losing indexing pages by the hundreds of thousands. It was an 8 million page website. And I wrote schema, and it stopped the indexing issue, and some of them came back. And ranking came back. We did some other things like add hreflang and all that stuff. So that's why I say it's kind of a correlating thing, not a causation. But there's certainly some legs on that too, is making sure your schema is done correctly. That could, if anything, if you're having the indexing issue, adding that to that, and that might solve it. Especially on the quality thing. If Google's quality filters are kicking you out, do you put some decent, really good, well built out schema on there and see if that helps you?
And what about document links, PDFs, Google Docs, Word Docs, RTF Docs?
That used to work, and then Google put in now where you can't go in there. Well, they made it convoluted to publish those. And I have tests running on all the Google properties right now. And it used to be public to the web, right? And publish to the web, make it available to the web inside of the sharing things. Publish to the web is still there, but now the default people see is restricted or available to anyone with a link. giving the indication that they're not making them public to the web anymore, or they're leaning to that route. And I'm testing those as it is. And right now, if you publish it to the web, pretty much in the early results, if you publish to the web, there's like no ranking value. If you leave it alone and just make it available to link, there's ranking value there. So if there's ranking value, then it would be safe to say that there's some indexing value to it too. So that's definitely worthwhile testing. And don't just stick with documents. Go to sheets, go to drawings, My Maps. My Maps is a little bit different. Like it was there. I got a little bit of power out of it, but that was it. There's no publish to the web. It's either you have the map there with the link or you don't. So test all of those for sure.
What about domain parking pages? Have you guys worked with those at all for any type of indexing schemes?
Not on this end, no.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah, because I know a ton of people who have between 100 and 1,000 domains just doing nothing, just sitting there, not even configured for being websites. And if everybody put those domains to work, that's quite a bit of home pages that could be indexing content.
Yeah, that makes sense. You just redirect that to your host and put a single page lander and kind of rotate RSS feed through there, then that might do it.
Yeah, and just randomize the links you're indexing for uniqueness.
Yeah, that's sound.
Yeah,
I'd try that for sure.
So the final thought I want to put out there is that there's room for next generation indexing techniques, and it seems like there's a lot of edge points to Google's infrastructure. I suspect that next generation indexers are going to use a lot of methods. They're not going to be built around one method like they kind of are today. They're going to be built to use as many possible methods as they can. I looked at like a bunch of services, like the backlink indexing services, and it looks like they're built on the premise of, drip feeding links to backlinks and those types of things. And those look dangerous for money sites. So I definitely wouldn't use them for your business, but maybe for your tier 2, tier 3 links. But what do you guys think about the future of indexing solutions? Where do you think it might be going?
Well, I think it's, if you're a white hat content creator or a black hat who, creates backlinks by the million, you have the same problem. You want to be able to get your content indexed and keep it indexed. So, there's always going to be research into this areas and people testing different things to get it done because it's needed by everybody who wants their stuff in Google. So I think it's going to just continue to evolve. And, as Google evolves, the techniques will evolve because, if you build 1 million backlinks and you want them indexed, paying for an indexer that's charging, 1 or 2 cents a piece becomes a little cost prohibitive. So there's always going to be a need for this.
Yeah, I think until Google figures out indexing with Search Console, makes it more accurate, but puts throttles in place to prevent abuse, we're always going to have issues. We're always going to have to test out different ways to knock it out. And this is going to be one of those ongoing battles. Unfortunately, it is, there's so many filters in there. Is it content? Are they doing quality content? Well, if that's true, then why is Lorem Ipsum still ranking? Why does pages like I got on Digital Lear, I got pages that are nothing but visual builder short codes and some words that are still ranking number 1. So it's clearly it's not quality content as indexing. So, just bouncing that out and testing that and playing with things. This is probably going to be a never-ending battle that we're always going to have to deal with.
Yeah, and There's a few more methods out there. Like I know Terry Power shared some clues about his indexing solution, and I didn't go into that because his business is built on that, and so I don't want to out it. And so if you want to share a method so I'm aware of it, but you don't want me to share it publicly, feel free to say, hey, Ted, this isn't for sharing, but you should know about X, Y, and Z. And I really appreciate those tips, and I do honor them. So if I've missed something that I should know about for my own research that you want to keep private, feel free to reach out and just let me know that. If I miss something that you think I should share, feel free to let me know that too. And with that, do you guys think I missed anything off the top of your head?
Not that I could think of. I think you hit everything in general. There's always some sneaky stuff that someone knows that might be working more than others, and but I think most of those are based off of kind of where you have that list you have there, or some kind of variation thereof. So I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, I think, Ted, you forgot your number one ranking factor as an indexing method, which is to put cats everywhere.
Yeah, that's a surefire way to get picked up and syndicated. And you have to have the right cat density. So cat density is a very important factor.
Excellent tips.
All right. With that, we're a little bit over. We're 7 minutes over. So not bad putting 2 episodes of content into a single episode. So I hope you guys like this. We'll skip the questions. We can answer them in networking, or you can join IMG and just ask the whole community. Again, it's free to join IMG. And any final thoughts or announcements, Clint? Got anything coming up?
Nope, we're still good.
All right. So be sure to check out SEO this week on YouTube. I highly recommend it. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.